took my kitty's spot. Hello everyone! Thank you for joining me today. My name is Marnie, and on this channel we talk about anything and everything yoga related. Girl, it's okay. Scared my cat. In today's video we are going to be discussing the Westernization of yoga. Woo! So, as we all know, yoga has its origins in the Eastern world, specifically India. I do have a more in-depth video of yoga's origin story here on my YouTube channel, so definitely go check that out if you haven't seen it, or if you just want a little bit more information on yoga's backstory. Having that knowledge will definitely be beneficial for today's video, especially to know the timeline order of things. But in case you don't want to go find that video, or if you don't care, I will be telling you the few things that you should probably know before diving in anyway. Oh, shout out new notebook also. My last one was ugly. So, as I said, yoga originated in India. It's a very ancient practice, closely intertwined with Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, believed to have been brought into practice around 1700 to 1100 BC. Now, this yoga, how it originated, is probably not the practice that you think of today, but it was more of a religious practice involving mental and spiritual aspects in connection with the human mind and body. So much less physical, still have physical aspects, but much less of a fitness. Okay. But much less of a physical exercise, and rather an exercise of the mind, perhaps. Anyways, that is just a very tiny snippet into the depths of yoga's origins. But for the purpose of today's video, we will be jumping 1,000 and some years to the year 5 BC. This is when the philosophy of yoga began making its way out of the home country, out of India. Yoga began being passed down the Silk Road, which, if you remember, probably from your high school history class, the Silk Road was a network of trade routes connecting Asia and the Mediterranean. Mostly used for, oh, Roxy, look out, girl, oh my gosh, move, girl, move, thank you, sorry. Anyways, the Silk Road was mainly, of course, used for physical goods, but a lot of religion and ideas were passed down through there as well. Now, of course, this is almost like a giant game of telephone running across multiple countries, lots of different people. So inevitably, the practices and ideas of yoga shifted as it traveled. It was sort of adapting each culture's different approaches and ideas that they liked, and keeping those for their culture, and then that was being passed down. You know, it gets a little twisted. By the 20th century, yoga had officially made its journey to the Western world. The arrival of yoga in the United States is greatly credited to Swami Vivekananda. I'm really sorry, I don't know for sure if I'm saying that correctly, but I'm trying my best. He was a Hindu monk from India that came to the States in 1883. Now, Vivekananda was deeply religious, giving and devoting his full surrender to God. He described yoga as the science of the mind and began translating the ancient Sanskrit texts that yoga is derived from, such as the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, which I do go a little bit more in depth in that video I mentioned before. So again, check that out if you're interested. But basically, Sanskrit, if you don't know, is yoga is a Sanskrit word. The actual poses and ideas of yoga originated in the Sanskrit language. Anyways, he began translating these into English to spread the teachings and practices a little bit more widely across the states, being able to reach more people. He He actually went on to introduce and demonstrate yoga practices and philosophy at the Chicago World Fair in 1893. Other things being presented at this fair included new technologies such as alternating current electricity, which is AC as we know it today. And this is still the most commonly used electric system to this day, especially in homes and buildings. Like, we're still using it, of course, for heating and cooling and all of that good stuff, this is a side note, but that's so crazy to me that someone came up with that technology in 1893 and it's still what we use every single day today. Like, what a crazy technological advancement for that day and age. Oh, another product that was being introduced at this fair alongside yoga was juicy fruit gum, which is still like pretty well known and widely used today, I would say. Pretty iconic, if you ask me. Anyways, after this presentation of yoga at the fair, of course, America started taking their own spin on yoga, as we like to do. But as the practice was being developed in the West, it began shifting toward a more physical aspect, more of that physical fitness, becoming more separated from its religious roots. Yoga continued to spread slowly, however, it did come to a halt in 1924 when the United States enforced the Immigration Act. This limited the number of immigrants allowed into the country. It put a quota on the amount of people coming in. So, with the Eastern world once again cut off from the West, the practice slowed its spread but did not go away completely. In the 1930s, there was an American scholar by the name of Theos Bernard who ventured to India to embark on religious and philosophical pursuits. He had been studying Indian and Tibetan traditions in America but wanted to experience these ideas and practices firsthand, from the pros. So while he was in India, he fully submerged himself in the yogic philosophies that he was learning, and he brought all of his lessons back when he returned to America. Bernard then finished his dissertation at Columbia University, which he had been attending before he went east, and then finished it up when he came back, and it actually turned out to become a best-selling book called Hatha Yoga, The Report of a Personal Experience. This was published in 1947, which was the same year the first yoga studio was opened by a woman named Indra Devi in Hollywood. So this is kind of a big year for yoga. Honestly, these next few years are sort of like yoga's golden age. It really started taking off. These are the years where yoga began spreading very quickly. Richard Hittleman, a man who is considered to be a pioneer in introducing yoga to the masses in the West, was studying the yoga philosophies and practices in India around this time as well when he returned to the States in 1950. He wrote multiple best-selling books regarding yoga, but his even bigger marketing of yoga was, take a guess, it was through television. That's right, yoga got its big debut on the big screen in 1961. Now, this was huge, of course. Everyone was watching TV at this time, like brand new technology. Everyone is like, oh my gosh, what is this? I need to be a part of it. So, of course, this brought millions of views toward yoga. It was really taking off left and right. Everyone was hearing about it, but it wasn't, again, the traditional way that yoga was originally brought about. The way Richard was displaying yoga on television was now solely a physical approach. He still spoke a little bit of the great effects yoga has on the mind, but he wanted to leave the actual religious beliefs out of it. This was so that it would be brought up into a more brought into more mainstream ideas, I guess. The 60s had a lot of religious-based crises already, so I would imagine he thought it best to just kind of stay out of all of it. Probably thought he would sell more books and get more views if it was less of a hot topic. With yoga now being all over television at everyone's fingertips, there was a huge explosion of the practice across America. Then later, by 1965, that 1924 immigration quota that we talked about earlier was lifted. This, opened up a whole new wave of Eastern teachers in America. So, of course, this brought a whole new surge of traditional yoga back into play, and it was everywhere. There were yoga schools and studios popping up all over the country in the 70s. Then there was a man by the name of Patabahi, I think it's Patabahi, and I want to say Joie. It might be Joyce. I'm sorry. In French, it would be Joie. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm going to say Patabahi Joyce for the purpose of this video. Anyways, he was an Indian yoga master that came to America in 1975. He introduced California to the widely known practice today, Ashtanga yoga. His roots were, of course, connected to the ancient philosophy of yoga, but he decided to leave that out of his teachings here in America. His idea was to take just the physical approach. Again, I feel like this is probably because Americans would have accepted the physical practice more so than the religious aspect, especially with the day and age that it was. But that's just how I feel. So this new Ashtanga practice that he was teaching evolved from the strict sequencing and poses of Hatha yoga to a more free-form, flowy practice, resulting in this Ashtanga and even Vinyasa, like as we know today, style of yoga. This was much more popular among Westerners because of the physical benefits. They were sort of like, we want the spirituality out of our fitness. We just want our bodies strong, not our minds, That was kind of the vibe they were going for. But, anyways. As time carried on, yoga became decreasingly associated with spirituality in the West and increasingly associated with the medicine and fitness, leading to the introduction of power yoga. Okay? Power yoga came up with by the yoga teacher Burley Birch, who also wrote a book communicating the physical benefits of the practice. Power yoga then became even more appealing to the American masses because Miss Burley Birch, sorry, I don't know why I said it like that, because Burley Birch demarketed every mental and spiritual aspect of yoga in her book, which was a bestseller, so of course it was reaching a lot of people. A lot of people now not knowing or not caring about the history and the spiritual benefits and why yoga is the practice that it is. No one cared or knew because of how it was being marketed. As this new wave and spin on yoga continued, commercialization emerged and yoga became more and more commoditized with rising brands for different mats or props, clothing, and even retreats. Basically, capitalism got a hold of it, and well, that's a topic for another day, okay? Maybe we'll dive into that another time. But, America took its little spin on it. Now, as of 2025, there are 35 to 40 million Americans who practice yoga, which is over a 50% growth just in the last 5 years. The general consensus of these practicing individuals is that they are doing it to better their overall health, which is awesome. It will better your overall health, so that's great. Of course, every person has their own ideas and motivations behind their yoga practice, but I would say it is very safe to say that yoga lost its true meaning during its venture through the Western world. There have been a lot of shifts through the centuries that yoga has been around, and it has been around for centuries, so of course it's going to be changed a little bit, but I would love to know what you guys think about how yoga is being practiced today, or maybe why, just whatever you guys are thinking. But whether you're practicing yoga for its mental or physical benefits, I just believe it is important to know where it came from and the history and meaning behind the practice. I think it's good to know where something came from, especially if it is a big practice of yours or something you're trying to get into. So, if you thought this video was interesting, or if you thought it was helpful in any way, or if you want to see more, I would love if you liked the video, if you gave it a thumbs up, if you liked it, like I said, anything that you guys are thinking. But thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.